Welcome to Fabulous Fuckery. I'm your host, Baroness Bree. Fabulous Fuckery is your sophisticated destination for discussion on wellness, dating, family, and blurred life. Come with me while we discuss emerging fabulously in spite of life's fuckery. It's your girl, Baroness Bree. I'm here today with Miss Dafna Steinberg.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Dafna is a celebrated artist. She works in multiple mediums. She works with photography, video, collages, paint.
No paint.
No paint? No paint?
It's messy.
Okay. Well, not paint. However, she is just all about body positivity, all about feminist, just awesomeness. You just pick up everything that I love about art.
Oh, thank you.
And your messaging is love yourself. Your message is consistent, and I just love how you...
I try. It's hard sometimes, but I try.
You can find Dafna on dafnasteinberg.com.
Yep.
And when I tell you can see some of her art installations, I mean, you have an installation going on all the time. And
I try to show a lot just because and I try to also show a lot outside of living in DC, and then I try to show outside of DC because it just, it's a different audience. So yeah, I try to keep work rolling.
And you are a classically trained artist because you went to school for art.
I did. I actually, it's funny, I'm currently considering whether or not I want to go back to school because I didn't get an MFA, and apparently as an artist, that's the end-all be-all, you need an MFA. But I have an MA in photography and sociology. And so my background is actually both art and sociology. So that's why a lot of my work is about different social issues and, social issues. I was going to add something else.
You also did some training in London?
I did. I went to grad school in London, which was a very interesting experience. They have a very different way of thinking about things, and it's just interesting to talk about certain issues. Like when we talk about, ideas around feminism, race, politics, social class issues, their experience is so much different to ours, and they have a different way of talking about it. So so it was interesting to learn there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So in all your travels, in all your art, in all your experiences, like, how do you decide what you're going to pour into your art?
So most of my art is very self-referential, extending to the titles. I think the photo series that I'm working on right now is the first time that it has, it's kind of part of the title, but it's the first time I'm not using the word I or me in my title. A lot of my work stems from my life experiences. So the past two big bodies of work I made were about dating and how much I hate it. And but also, actually, the last body of work was stemmed actually from a traumatic experience that I had and while dating. And it was really a catharsis for me to kind of get all of that anger that I had out. And then it kind of ended up being a political statement because it was about women. It was about the experiences of women. And
can you let the listeners know the name of that piece?
Oh, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah. So that actually came from because after I ended things with this guy. All I had was a T-shirt, and it actually said "War on Women" on it because that's a great band, punk band from Baltimore. The last date we had was we went to go see a punk show, and we saw War on Women, and I was like gung ho about it, and it ended really badly.
I just love how you take your life experiences and you pour it into your work.
Thank you.
And someday, so if you follow Dafna's Instagram, can you give your Instagram account?
Yes, my Instagram is Dafna Steinberg Art. Just at Dafna Steinberg Art.
And so if you follow her, you'll see where she is in her journey for the week. And you just have such well-curated pieces.
Thank you.
But, one day it may be Dafna eating a muffin and she's in her car. And it's
that's a cupcake.
It is a cupcake.
Yes,
and, it's like, oh, okay. And then, then
I scarfed that cupcake down.
And then you're like, okay, because you don't think of... You make so many things are interactive art pieces, and I don't think of what I'm doing as art. But I was like, you know what, bitch, this selfie is art, and so it's like, or when I'm, you get dressed and I didn't like what I have on today. You know, this could also be another piece of art, you know, a B-side.
Yeah.
But
sometimes I think social media is so fascinating in that respect because it is performance. It's always like life is performance in a way. And we are always performing something. And so, you know, I have things where it's like I photograph myself in the mirror in my building every day. I don't do it as much anymore, but I was doing it for about 4 years. And so now I have amassed, and if you ever want to see all of them, if you look up hashtag Jewish thighs, it's an inside joke.
I'm very much aware of the Jewish thighs. So this
Jewish
is the
thighs,
thing.
it's all pictures of me. It's just pictures of me. And
did that start on Instagram or on Twitter?
On Instagram.
Okay, so this started on Instagram.
I think I've used it on Twitter, but it started on Instagram. And it was a joke between me and a friend, and I was like, I'm going to make this a thing, and it's
this thing.
And so now every once in a while, friends of mine will post something and they'll hashtag it. So it's occasionally other people, but yeah, no, it's.
I love when it's legit. Like an occasional like brown Jewish thigh, or you're like, whose flag is that? That's not Dafna's flag.
I know, and I'm just like, but it makes me. I'm like, yes.
So no, I just love the fact that you're like so body positive.
Thank you.
Where did you find the comfort in saying this is what it looks like? You guys are going to get these pictures.
It's taken a really long time, and there's a lot of. I went through a lot of really horrible things, and I mean, I've had, you know. I tell this story a lot, and people are always really horrified by it, and it always makes me think about how I'm kind of nonchalant about it. But I remember I was in a restaurant eating, and a guy came up behind me and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Hey, fatty, leave some for the rest of us."
What a
and
bastard.
It was like, yeah, I mean, it was just like my initial reaction was I really wanted to take my fork and stab his hands.
Of course.
But I didn't. I just kind of froze up, and I remember thinking about how the violation wasn't just the words; it was the fact that he also touched me.
You. Yep.
And it was just this kind of, you know, weirdly like almost like he was hitting on me, but it wasn't. It was just gross all over, and but that experience is not. I mean, I always say, you know, if I had a nickel for every time I got called a fat bitch, I would probably have enough to pay for the T-shirt that I now own that says "fat bitch" on it. Like, it's just, it's you know, and I haven't worn it out in public for that reason, but I have other things that I wear that say things like, my favorite is plus size. I have a necklace that says plus size Barbie.
Nice.
And
I love it.
And people really respond to it, and it's always funny because people don't know what to do when you are a fat person and you're comfortable.
And that's such a fucked up thing.
Yeah, it is a fucked up thing.
I think we've been so brainwashed by media and society that everyone has to be a certain size.
Right.
And it's like, no one is that fucking size. No one's that small. I like food. You like food. I've had babies. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Let's be happy in the skin we're in. And I'm really excited that the brands are starting to do a better job of,
I worry though about co-opting. I mean, I worry about, that was kind of the whole thing with the whole Dove. Love. I mean, and I feel like that's I think it's good, but then it's also like you still have so much more work to.
We have a lot of work.
Yeah, and it's and also, it's that thing of I'll use the word fat, and people are like, oh, don't use that word, and I'm like, why? That's an adjective. I'm a fat person. There are thin people. It's not, and I don't think of it. I've taught myself to not think of it as a negative word.
Well, good. Well, and actually, the way you say that, like, I have so many friends, and we're all going through different struggles, different journeys. And, you got the big one, the skinny one, the one, this one, the dark one, this one, this one. And I always hate when someone says, oh, hey, your friend was really pretty. And I'm like, oh, which friend? It's a picture of 8 people. The fat one. No, we don't do that. Which one were you referring to? The pink dress, the blue dress?
Yeah, there are other ways to describe.
And I feel as though society is so negative.
They use fat as a negative term. And what I always think is interesting is going back to like saying, being called a fat bitch, it's like, that is always I've found, my experience with that is 95% from men, and it's 95%, it's 100%, 95% from men, but 100% when I've said no.
Yep.
And the response is, they think that that's the thing that's gonna break me.
Yes, and every time I've said no, oh, you ugly bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
You busted ass. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just tried to get my number.
Exactly.
And now I'm a bitch.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, whatever the term is in front of it. And guys have got to stop doing that shit. Stop. That was it, the toxic masculinity. Stop putting your evil into the air because you didn't get what you want.
Just say.
Okay.
Exactly. Just be like, thank you, I appreciate your response, and you have a nice day.
Yeah, sorry, you're not interested.
Yeah, or not even, just like, okay.
But like, if they don't get the job, do they go back to the manager and say,
That's what I'm saying. And that's a lot. It's always just like,
you bald bitch, you didn't give it a job.
Some people do.
That's frightening.
Especially if it's a woman telling them no. I always find it so fascinating, and it's been really interesting doing work around my body and so what I always say about this work, so the work it's called La Belle Fleur Sauvage, which is actually a song title from this band called Lord Huron.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, I love them. They're like, I'm obsessed with them. But the song is really, like, the lyrics I actually are kind of problematic, but the song itself is really beautiful, and I just imagine like I want somebody to write a song like that for me, but I'm imagining, and if you look up, it's funny because if you look up La Belle Fleur Sauvage as a hashtag, it's legitimately like white women with long straight hair in the mountains, and they have flowers and things, and it's just like, I am never gonna look like that. I'm never going to look like that, but that, because it means, for those who don't speak French, it means the beautiful wildflower.
Correct.
And the idea of being a flower is, wispy and dainty, but the song that's talking about, like, standing the test of time and outliving generations of, men who try. The song basically personifies a flower as a woman.
Understood.
And why can't I be that? So, right, exactly. And so that's why I wanted to start taking photos of myself, because I'm finally at a point where I'm comfortable in my body and it feels like home, and I live in it, and it sustains me, and it takes me where I need to go. It heals me. It, as much as I've been hurt, it's also, it's what keeps me going. And all the scars and all the, the ones you can see, the ones you can't see, those are all part of that.
That is actually the perfect way to describe your body, because when you've been through things, like the way you just described it, it's perfect. Like, I don't even have to ask you another question.
Thank you.
All right, so next
interview over.
Nah, pretty much. We're done, bitches. But no, the way that you described it, if we could have more women who have been through the level of self-care, to say, oh, the shit that happened to me, this man who did this to me, these people who've done this to me, we've all been through body negative events. And so to say it's home,
and nobody can take that away from you.
Nope.
And and trauma's a bitch. Like, trauma's, and trauma can be anything from words that people say to physical acts to like repetitive abuse, and I think our body sustains so much, and it's so fragile, and yet so strong. Especially as women, I think we talk about, I always think it's funny when it's like the strength that women have, they always talk about childbirth. And it's like, that is a thing that women can sustain, but I always think it's funny, I'm like, we're strong in other ways. I always find it problematic that is the only thing we talk about in terms of women's strength.
Well, we were talking, so a friend of mine were talking about this a couple of days ago, because she's never had children. However, she's endured great losses. And so we were talking about your ability to heal from those losses. And, why do we always say, oh, it's childbirth. But when you've had, so many people in your family pass away, or dealing with disease, that takes a lot from you. And a woman's body and the things that we're able to do, not to say that men don't heal from this as well, for the fellas listening. However, women we just kick ass, and and that's some of the time why we take so long to heal from our traumas, because we are in go mode, and it's time to take care of business. We go take care of business, and we forget to take care of ourselves in the process.
And that's always something to keep. And for me, this project was about taking care of myself, and it was about sort of, I jokingly call it, because I photograph myself in in intimate spaces or ideas around intimate spaces. So it's mostly my home or my parents' home, but then also it was a lot of also hotel rooms. And so I jokingly have started calling it me naked in hotel rooms because it's just like, yeah, that's
you see it online, you're like, okay, get it, Dafna.
I don't really, I'm afraid Instagram's going to take down a lot of them. I remember the International Center of Photography, I studied there when I was in college, and their alumni Instagram feed accepted 2 of my photos, and they emailed me and they're like, this has nipples in it. Can we put a black bar across it? And I was like, yeah, sure, I guess. And it's like, it still didn't make me any less. It was like this tiniest little black bars, and I'm like, it didn't make me any less naked. It didn't make me any less feeling very vulnerable. But it was just really funny that was what was the difference between Instagram taking it down or not.
So did you put the black bar on your art?
No, they did it.
They did it. Okay.
Yeah. So, but then I had another piece that was shown by a gallery that I submitted work to them and didn't get accepted for a show, and they put one of my pieces up, and it was a piece where I'm naked in a bathroom in a hotel in New Orleans brushing my teeth, and it was, they didn't put an bar across the nipple, and I didn't know they were going to put it up, and then suddenly I just started seeing all of these comments on a post about that I was tagged in, and I was like, oh, they chose that one, okay, that's a good one. And then it's like, I'm like, all right, share it with my friends, this just happened, I'm excited.
Well, we'll have to go look for the nipple pictures and go do a search.
You can find them, you just email me. It's fine, I don't care.
It's like, is that creepy? It's like, I'm going to go search for Dafna's nipples. She just told us.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's like, they're out there.
But no, it's just the fact that you are comfortable being naked and you're comfortable saying this.
I think everybody should be comfortable being naked.
We're not, because we've been body shamed our whole lives.
Well, this is the thing I've been telling people when they're like, how do you do it? And I'm just like, you know what? Go home, get naked, take a picture of yourself naked, and then just look at it. And when you look at it, stop looking for the flaws. Look at it until you can't see anything but yourself. And that's something that I got from Lindy West's book Shrill, which is now the TV show, because she talked about that and how she got comfortable with her body, and hers was like looking at pictures of fat women in bikinis at the beach on Instagram, and she did it until she stopped seeing fat and she just started seeing them and their personalities and coming through.
That's so important.
It's really important.
I'm in love with everything you're saying.
But it's true, and I tell people that, and I tell that to men, women. I don't tell it to children, but children don't care. I mean, my favorite thing was one of my best friends, her son, who I adore. He's the sweetest kid ever, and I adore. And he came to the opening of the show that I had with this body work, and I was carrying him, and we were looking, and he looked at the photos on the wall, and he said, oh, "That's your butt," and I was like, "That is my butt," and he was so excited that we both had butts, and it was just like, this is what I need.
Let's teach teach it to the kids young, so they don't have to go through therapy.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm just, it's nice.
It's going to save so much money.
I know, and it also saves, if you teach kids that their bodies are their own, it saves a lot of struggle on, teaching them consent, teaching them. So just like, and that's hard. It's hard because it's ingrained.
And it's horrible because the definition of consent is consistently being revised.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, motherfuckers, you don't get to tell me that what it means. And if I say okay and then I change my mind, you have a right to change your mind. And now they're saying, well, once a man's aroused, you shouldn't make it stop.
No.
And it's like, no. If a woman has changed her mind and you
changing your mind is, I change my mind every 5 seconds about the most minute things.
We have to do a better job of teaching our boys how to become men. And right now, you're sitting here and you're listening to these entitled people tell me what I should. And we're going to get back to people going to have to cross the border. We're going to have to get people here to help them get safe abortions. That's ridiculous. And we have all these men who don't understand how many abortions their daughters probably had.
I mean, they don't. Well, no, they do understand because they probably would make sure their daughters had an abortion.
Exactly.
But it's also like they don't really know how the female body works.
Nope.
And so it's kind of like, the whole thing about, when you're talking about 6 weeks, being pregnant at 6 weeks, and it's just like, how many women know that they're getting their period, or they know that they're, having a miscarriage.
Right. I mean, the first baby I had, I didn't realize I was pregnant. She was like, holy shit, what do you mean I'm 2 months pregnant? Holy shit. And
I mean, I'm wondering how personal I should get. I've had 2 abortions, and it's, and I don't regret either one. That doesn't mean that I don't feel things about them.
Yep.
And I wrote on Facebook a number of years ago, I wrote about how, there's a certain time of the year that I always get a little sad. Mm-hmm. And I realized a couple years ago that it was around the time when I would have had a child. Mm-hmm. And there's a sadness to that. Ma'am. And literally before we started recording, and we talked about this, but I don't want kids. I know that that's a decision that I've come to, and that, I know things about myself and raising children. And there are things that I know that I don't necessarily want. And yeah, it may change, if I meet some debonair guys.
But your decisions are your decision, and
right? And that's they're
trying to take away our right to make decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's and I think about how the process I went through of figuring out. I mean, one time I was on birth control, and I still got pregnant.
Every time I've gotten pregnant,
actually
birth control.
Well, and what I think is I actually lost weight. I changed my body just to get on birth control, and I said to the doctor, I really want the normal, and he's like, well, I don't like your blood pressure, and I don't like this, and and the thing is, my blood pressure was fine at the time, and I was like, can you just put me on the regular? I'm working out, I'm eating right, and he didn't, and I got pregnant, and that for me was also a turning point in my thinking about my body, because I felt so cheated by the medical industry, which constantly tells us, oh, you have to lose weight, diet and exercise. And that's something that, I get so mad thinking about it. But it's something that there are thin people who are sick, there are fat people who are healthy.
Correct.
There are thin people who have diabetes, there are fat people who have diabetes.
Yes.
Being fat does not mean you're going to get these diseases. It doesn't mean and so, I think it's something that I wish the medical industry would change too.
We have to change our mindset and what we see. When you see a person, first of all, everyone is obese. I've been told I'm obese. You're
if you have...
And I'm like, what? And they're like, because of your height, your weight, and your bone structure, you're this.
Okay, so which is bullshit.
And so I'm looking at the list, and I'm like, so they're telling me, you need to lose 15 more pounds. And I'm like, well, I look like a bobblehead doll if I lose 15 more pounds. So this is what we look like. And everyone's body structure is different.
Yeah.
Everyone's.
If you find a bodybuilder, which we think of a bodybuilder as like the pinnacle of health, right? Sort of, but
despite the drugs.
Bodybuilders are obese.
Yep.
Because their weight and their height, depending on their height, it doesn't match.
Right.
And so what the BMI chart doesn't take into account muscle. It doesn't take into account bone density.
Nope.
It doesn't take into account, just natural genetics.
Yep.
Of, I always joke that I come from a long line of very short, very robust women, and BMI doesn't take that into account.
They don't think about any of that stuff. And my grandmother was 4'11". She was 195 pounds. It's like tiny big woman, and but she would kick your ass.
I love the idea of tiny big woman.
Yeah, she would fuck you up.
Exactly.
So we have to respect people and where their bodies are and where we lie, and we just have to do a better job all that.
And also, if you want people to lose weight, shaming them into doing it is not going to make them. It's going to make them gain weight. It's going to make them.
It's stressful.
Yeah.
We have to teach people eating is a mindset. You eat to get full. You eat to,
I eat to. It's like
I like
snacks. I love snacks.
So, but
there's a video of a little girl who's she's so funny. She's like, snacks, and I am like, that is me every day. That is me every day, anytime I go anywhere.
There's a meme of this lady said, she was saying, they said, what are you going to do? She goes, I'm going to go home and eat lots of sweets and get all fat and sassy. And that's, I post that at the beginning of every winter. All right, y'all, I'm about to get fat and sassy because I'm going to sit here and eat all the snacks and sweets.
I mean, I was having this conversation, I've been moving stuff and just like, it's like moving around and lifting things. And I'm just like, oh my God, I feel so tired and everything hurts. And I'm like, you know what? I want to go back to working. I used to box and it was awesome. And that was a thing where, my body wasn't really judged. It was probably the fittest I ever was in my life, but I wasn't thin. I was thinner.
You were happy.
But I wasn't well, I was happy, but I mean, I'm happy now. But so it's really, it's relative. And it's like, and I was happy when I was boxing, because it was like anger management and exercise rolled into one. But I also wasn't happy because I wasn't in a good place in my life. And, now I feel like I'm in a really good place and I feel like I'm, more settled, with my body and myself. But it's like, I want to go work out. I just don't want to go somewhere where somebody's going to be like, are you trying to get beach body ready? And I'm like, my body is beach body ready. I'll just put on a bathing suit and go.
We have just got it was just too much. Every day is like Instagram, slim tummy tea.
Yeah. Oh, this, no. I don't even follow any of that.
It pops up in my sponsored ads and I don't know what algorithm I have done to make people feel like I care about that shit. But I don't, sometimes they catch you at a weak moment. Like, when you're up at 3 a.m. and you're watching it and it's like some T-carb commercial and you're like, I don't want that. But you really don't. You're just half asleep. I'm sleep deprived and I'm hungry. But we just, it's just too much. But
I made a body of work about that, about emotional eating and like the different moods that we make.
I like that piece because it was several pieces and she actually had like a table set and
all the food was fake.
Right.
And then I did a performance where I ate a Five Guys cheeseburger in front of an audience of 25 people and it was awesome. It was terrifying.
Now I want a cheeseburger. I haven't had.
There's a Five Guys around the corner from here.
Do they do turkey burgers? I haven't had red meat in forever.
Oh,
Can you go to Five Guys and ask for a turkey burger? They may throw me out on my ear.
Maybe. No. I think they have other options. I don't know what I don't know.
I don't want to.
I don't know.
I don't want to eat any of this. I don't know. Beyond meat stuff. I don't want to eat nude food and Soylent Green. I don't know what the fuck you're feeding me. At what point? We don't know that they're feeding us people or not. So, it's like, I'm vegan, but you didn't say no human. But it's all these food options.
That'd be the most amazing thing if vegans became cannibals. Like, I'm sorry, vegans. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying that we don't know what Beyond Meat is.
Sure. And what is it? Impossible?
It's Impossible Burger. And, they're talking about all the things that are in it. And I looked at it and I'm like, looks like some sort of meat product to me.
I don't know. I'm
going to stick with my bean burgers. If I don't, I'll eat a tuna.
Veggie burgers? I don't know. I might be.
We're going to go on a field trip and find out.
But go to Five Guys. Yeah.
So I also want to talk about your work in the community because you are teaching people how to make art, and it's so amazing to me that this is something I've never thought about doing.
Yeah, So are you referring to World Collage Day?
Yes, ma'am.
World Collage Day was on May 10th this year.
You're awesome.
I think I've been doing a lot of. I've taught some workshops at the National Women's Museum, and I've taught. If anybody wants to go, I'm teaching workshops at Michael's.
Really?
In Virginia. Yeah, you have to go to Virginia though. So that's
Are the links on your website?
I will post the links to my website, but I also post the links to my Instagram account.
Oh, awesome. So, okay.
But I think the link is up on my Instagram account right now. But the whole, I think collage is one of those art forms that every time I tell people that I make collages and they're like, oh, I did that in high school. And it's like, you can still do it now. And I think it's a really great way because it's using found materials. So it's an easy way and it's cost efficient. You can use stuff that you have at home. You just need a pair of scissors and a glue stick. And it's really easy, and it's good for any age. You don't have to be a child. You don't have to be an adult. And I think it's a really great way to connect ideas through images and words. So I do. You can do like poetry with using. I call ransom note poetry. It's like you do found word
ransom note poetry.
Ransom note poetry.
I'm sitting here thinking about I have an idea for a collage now. So I'm sitting here thinking about.
Great.
Because I've been doing some writing, and I think one piece may I have some images that go along with it. I do a lot of Pinterest boarding, and then my Pinterest board,
which is in a sense a collage.
So it's like I have vision board type things, and it's like maybe I should make this. And my youngest son paints. And so we have all this stuff in the house, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna go take some spray on spray paint, and like I'm just going.
Don't do it in the house. Do it outside.
Outside, no. You put it. I have a tarp. We have everything together.
Oh, good. Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking. I'm like I'm gonna make some art, and I'm gonna post it and get a critique.
I always try to be very nice with my critiques.
So now, in addition to everything you have going on, what are you doing to say? This is Dafna's happy place. This is what I'm doing to take care of myself.
I said that, I'm moving back home currently to help my mom take care of my dad. My dad's been, his health has been great. And part of that is, I think, caring for myself, because it's like I'm spending time with my parents and in a way that we haven't before. And it's interesting to see kind of how my mom's going to watch this and she's going to be like,
"You're talking too much."
she's like, "Stop talking.
Shut the fuck up."
She will say that to me. No, but it's interesting because, my concern was, am I going to go back to being a 16-year-old? And it's like, no, I'm not. And it's about, thinking about yourself as a caretaker as opposed to being the one being cared for. And so it's hard to sometimes find going through. And my art is a place where I find solace. It's, I invest a lot in it. Collaging helps a lot, and it's very therapeutic. It's just sometimes it's a matter of I just take a magazine and I just cut things out. I've been oh man, I feel so bougie saying this, but I've been what is it called? Bullet journaling.
Yeah.
And that's been really cathartic because it's like I feel like I can see things getting done, and I can write down things that I'm feeling about in a moment. It doesn't have to be a whole journal entry. For
those of you who are not familiar with bullet journaling, my favorite website ever is Pinterest, and they have a whole entire section. If you just type in bullet journaling, they'll give you like 50,000 ways to do it. There's people who overdo it.
Yeah, there are people who are
fucking show offs.
I feel like I saw a store that I think was dedicated to bullet journaling. It was like all fancy pens and stuff. And it made me actually interested because it was so feminine, and I was like, oh, because women have to do all the tasks in the house, so that's why it's all it's just literally taking your ideas for the day and putting a bullet and organizing it. Some people make it sections, some people put in fancy washi tape. I started the bullet journal and I was like, I hate this shit, and I threw the book away. And so it's like I'm just going to keep taking. My bullet journal has a naked woman on it, so it's fine. It's just like I treated myself to the papyrus fancy suede double wrap. I lost the cord already. That's okay.
But it was on sale. I did not pay the $69.99. That bad boy. I wait until the end of the season when it gets an orange sticker on it.
Yes.
Like I'll scrape that orange sticker off when I get home. $4. But the bullet journaling is it's very helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's and I think it's also, I'm at a point in my life where there was a meme that I saw where it was just kind of like talking about age and I've realized recently that I'm so much happier in my 30s than I was in my 20s. And everybody's like, oh, I wish I was in my 20s again. I'm like, I really don't. And I'm really happy to be at the place that I'm at, and bullet journaling, like feeling responsible and feeling like things are getting done.
We're
and
adulting.
Feeling like
it's fancy adulting with cocktails.
It's fancy adulting, yes.
With fancy hats.
With all the I do try to wear a fancy hat. I got some fancy hats that fit on my hair. I got a clip on. But I just found my fascinator, so I'm very excited to wear that at some garden party
There's going to be a lot going on this summer. We'll find a reason.
I think so. I think they're like some rooftop party.
Yeah. But taking that time and seeing what's important, like it's really, I'm so impressed that you, in the midst of everything you have going on, are trying to find a way to take care of yourself, take care of others.
Yeah,
us culturally.
I think, and it's funny because I think social media is also great for that.
You think
Sometimes I find, I try to have a community of people that are supportive. and who I can support, who I want to support.
Understood.
And so I think, especially in the arts, it's a difficult, space to be in, but finding those people and meeting new people and seeing that we're all kind of on the same journey. I mean, vastly different ways, but we're all kind of, trying to get to that point where we're healing and we are at a safe, I don't want to say a safe space, but like in a place where we feel comfortable.
Well, what's also interesting is that DC is just such a creative, it's just so many different ideas.
Yeah.
You go to a party, it's like, oh, I'm going to a DC creatives party. And then next thing I was like, what the hell is that? So, it's just so many people, so many different things. And you're like, how do I fit into this? How do I get to know these people, writers and authors, and everyone has a book coming out this summer, and I'm like, well, what the fuck, and everyone has
it's like my reading list is too long. I can't do this.
It's too long, and it's like, oh, you're listening to that on Audible, not buying the book. No, I bought the Audible. I have 500 Audible credits that have to go.
Yeah.
So it's like, no more money from me, Audible. But we have to, we find a way to link up and support each other. I had a guest on the other day where we were talking about when you're networking, tends to be artists network with artists and investors and network with investors.
Oh, I always say, like, that's the worst thing.
That's the worst way to do it. I think we have to diversify our group. Yeah. And I think, like, I met you through, meeting other writers.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, well, she's cool. And we do.
It's funny because, like, our mutual friend, we met years ago and we bonded over so many different things. And, like, that had nothing to do with creative outlet. But then it became kind of like, supporting each other creatively and I think I always say like when I walk into a room full of artists and I say I'm an artist, everybody's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But if I walk into a room full of like lawyers and say I'm an artist, they're like, oh, tell me more. What is that like? What is that? I wish I could be creative. And then you start the whole conversation about what is creativity and I actually find that I prefer spending time with, I love spending time with artists, but I also really cherish time that I spend with non-artists because their worlds are so interesting to me.
Yes. And they give you a logic.
Yeah.
And so they'll give you a new thought process about it. And you're sitting there like, oh, I guess I have been doing this the hard way.
Yeah, or like they'll look at your work in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And the critiques you get
are different.
And like when I post a podcast and, I have my right brain friends call me and tell me one thing and then my left brain friends call me and I'm like, I can see the difference because some people are like, I think you're really hard on that person and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, this was, we laughed the whole interview. Or I didn't like that guest.
It's like you were asking the tough questions.
Yeah. And so, it's very interesting how people think and I like tapping into that energy.
And I think you can't be afraid. I think there's like levels of things where it's like everybody's, the whole thing about being offensive, right? Like everybody's going to be offensive at some point. Or everybody's going to be offended at some point, I should say, not offensive. But
both. We're both.
We're both. But I think there's the intentionality of being, like, for me, it's like I may have said something on this podcast that somebody might find inappropriate or offensive. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's not my intention. I didn't go out of my way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also the things that you learn about yourself is when you're in these kind of circles and you say something and somebody's like, oh, that's not really cool. And that starts a conversation. And you have to be open to that as a person. You can't be like, well, I didn't mean it. You can't get really defensive. And I try to be very open with that.
Like right now we're having this conversation. We were talking about sizing and all that stuff. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get an email like, hey, girlfriend, you did not have the ability. You should not have been able to say certain things because that's, and that's just, and I can't be offended because I understand where they're coming from. And it's like, I can't say anything. So we have to work on not being offended when people correct us and telling us that we have privilege.
Yeah, I recently presented a paper about fat representation, and this exact same thing came up because I was talking about Tess Holliday, and it was after it was in reference to her being on the cover of Cosmopolitan. Now, my mistake was that I didn't acknowledge that Tess Holliday has said some really racist things. Ooh. And and there might have been a better person to look for, but in the time frame that I had to write this paper, I didn't find that person, and it seemed really appropriate. And so it's really hard, especially with like fat images of fat women. Mm-hmm. It's really hard, and there is a huge and then looking back, and it's like there's a huge community of women of color, of Black women who are, plus size, fat, however you want to say, and it's amazing to me because those are women that I actually idolize a lot because they are very open, but it's difficult as a white woman saying like, oh, how do I approach this? What can I say? What can I say? And I'm just going to admire from afar but yeah, I could have probably found a different, and somebody called me on it at this conference, and it was one of those moments where it's like, you're right. I just had to sit there and be like, you're right. That was my mistake, and I apologize for that.
I'm sorry, I have to look for your paper, but
I'll send it to you.
No, but you're right, and it's just so hard because you're just trying. We live in this place that's almost over politically correct now. And you don't have, not to say I'm like, if someone is wrong, fucking tell me I'm wrong.
Right. No, exactly.
But we live in a place of cancel culture where the first thing
if a person says something,
as soon as you say something, like you didn't give that person a chance to apologize, you didn't give that person a chance to prove.
I just saw something on Twitter about this. Yeah.
I'm not sure who's been canceled today. Don't cancel Brie, but it's almost
hashtag don't cancel Brie.
But. There's so many things, and you can say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and your career is over.
Yeah,
and you're like, I'm already.
But I think there's some aspects of that I do agree with. Especially when we're talking about like the Me Too movement and it's everything.
Oh, of course.
And it's and you're talking about and I was talking about this with somebody because referencing a body of work I was showing a friend of mine a series I did with Tinder and Instagram. Tinder messages, and
you told me about this piece.
It's ridiculous.
I can't wait.
But it's in the and we were talking about it, and he said something about Aziz Ansari, and I was like, I can't. They were like, oh, because everybody said, have you read his book?
Right.
And I was going to, and then I didn't because of that whole the Babe article that came out, and it's like, do I think the Babe article was right? I think it could have been done better, but I think it was speaking to something that we don't talk about, and I know he's going to be fine. Like he's not, he'll come back in a couple years and everything will be fine and everybody will forget. And it's like, so do I think we should cancel him? No, but I, as a personal choice, am choosing not to support someone that I feel like is, being a faux feminist.
Understood.
Do I think of him as on the same level as Louis C.K.? No. Okay. That's a totally different, I think there's levels, and I think everything has nuance, and people are nuanced.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot. It's been a couple of years.
But I want to say thank you for joining and coming and visiting and telling us all about your art.
We can talk all day.
And we can talk all night. You can come back. We'll do it again. We'll do it again with cocktails.
Yes.
And, can you tell people where they can find you?
So you can find me at dafnasteinberg.com. You can find me on Instagram at Dafna Steinberg Art. And I think also it's the same on Facebook if you just do / Dafna Steinberg Art.
Okay. And all your links will be on the website.
All my links are on the website.
And then on the podcast website as well.
And if you want to join my mailing list, you can send me a message or just, say, hey, what's up? I'd like to join your mailing list, and I can add you to my mailing list so I can keep you updated.
Excellent. Well, everyone, thank you so much, Dafna, for coming by.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you for coming, and thank you for listening. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, please tell your listener friends all about us. You can find us anywhere you currently listen, and we just got added to iHeartMedia. So thank you so much, and have a great day.